What success looks like to a 33-year-old single woman is very, very, very different to the narrative that we've been told for a really long time. I look at you, and to me, this is like the success that I strive for. Her name is Lucy Blakiston.
Honestly, if I wasn't single, none of this would have happened. Billie Eilish has just put us on her story. Ariana Grande just followed us. I was just getting so much hate online and I was trying my best. Oh my God, I've been building this business and now it's done and what am I going to do? Our agent said to us at one point, like, are you going to roll the dice or you're going to take the safe option or something? And I was like, am I in fucking Succession? That was when we went from 200,000 to 1 million followers in a month. The book itself ruined my life, and the money doesn't come instantly, and sometimes it feels like it doesn't come ever. That, and then also how sort of complex things like investing, or how like manly it all felt. Topics are kept mystified.
For a reason.
It just takes us so fucking long to change anything. You and I, and probably a lot of women, feel more safe being financially independent than we would if we had our money tied to someone else. And also I'm just not that interested in being in a relationship, so love that for me.
Luce, I feel like this has been such a long time coming, this interview. Shit You Should Care About from the outside is such a global icon, and what you've created is just phenomenal. In terms of social awareness and having important conversations that educate a younger audience about consuming media in a totally different way, it's just like I look at it and I'm like, chef's kiss. But do you find from the outside you have conversations with people where they're like, Lucy, you're absolutely killing it. And you're like, yep, check my bank account. Give me some money.
Honestly, it's the amount of times I want to say to people like, hey, 3 million followers does not mean $3 million. And like, I'm so picky, almost annoyingly so, that I don't really like advertising on Instagram. I like to keep it very pure. So I'm like turning, I mean, I don't get offered a shit ton of money, but I like turn down a lot of sort of ad opportunities. And so I would love to be able to sit everyone down and be like, hey, I'm probably on a very similar, if not smaller salary than you, with a lot less job security. And it's quite stressful, but also I have the best job in the world, so I would sacrifice quite a bit of money, I reckon, to like live the job I do.
And you're so good at it. And I think that also what you're doing is such a brilliant example of investing in your skills and investing in your future in a totally different way to what a lot of people your age are doing. You know, like if you were to ever, God forbid, let's just hope this never happens, but if you ever left Shit You Should Care About or you moved on to something else, the skills and the experience that you've gained from that would stand you decades ahead anyone else going for any kind of role in the sort of media online sphere, you know, and you know that. So even though the money's not coming in a traditional sense from a salary, you're investing in your skills and your CV in a completely different way to what a lot of your friends are doing.
Like that is so reassuring to hear. I had like a moment at the end of 2023 where I was just getting so much hate online and I was trying my best and I was like, I need to just delete everything. I'm not qualified to do anything. What kind of job can I even get? Like I had a real, oh my God, I've been building this business and now it's done and what am I going to do? And my friends just had to sit me down and be like, Lucy, what the hell is this? Like you know what you can do. We know what you can do. And I think you've just had to back yourself for so long and you haven't had, I mean, I get external validation all the time, but I don't have a boss telling me that I'm doing a good job, right? And so it's really nice to hear that.
I think it's completely valid, and I experienced the exact same thing with The Curve before we worked with anyone, because you don't have that same feedback loop of like, am I doing a good job?
Yeah.
What could I have done better? You're learning from your mistakes rather than someone else putting some guardrails around you, and I think that's a really hard and sometimes super lonely place to be. So I completely understand that.
Yeah. I remember when I finished uni and Shit You Should Care About had started, like I'd started running it. It was 2018 and I applied for a bunch of jobs in Auckland, in PR and in media thinking like, cool, I think I'd be good at this. And I just got none of them. Like I'd get some interviews and people would meet me and I just wouldn't get the jobs. And I was thinking like, honestly, what the hell? What more could I be doing? And then luckily I didn't get any of them because I put all my energy into shit you should care about. But I was quite disheartened by that. I remember thinking like, who are you going to hire if not me? Like, I'm already building this really cool thing. I think that was when people didn't really understand what it was, and everyone was still kind of getting their news in a semi-traditional way, maybe. Yeah, that was like 6 years ago. But now I consult for people. So I'm like, hey, I know my shit and you could learn a lot from me, guys.
Oh, I think it's so cool to hear that you've come, like from that 2023 when you had that moment of like, because I do think when you're online and when you're a digital brain and you can get cancelled tomorrow, there is this real fear of it could be taken away so quickly. And what I'm building right now is not material in terms of what's coming into my bank account. Therefore, that fear or that like, oh, I just want to give up and move on when something threatens everything is so real and so scary. I totally understand that. When was the moment for you when you actually, before we move on, can I just say, as from someone from the outside, and it doesn't sound like you need this validation anymore, but I've been really like soul searching in this sort of space for myself lately, because the traditional what success looks like to a 33-year-old single woman is very, very, very different to the narrative that we've been told for a really long time. Yeah. And the way that I think about you and your skills and your success and your innovation and being so ahead of the curve in all of the different ways that you have starting this brand and building it to where it is today, I look at you and to me, this is like the success that I strive for. And so just as an outside perspective, like when I have those moments of being like, fuck, what am I doing? All my friends are like, popping out their third child and they've got their white picket fence and they've got their dog and they've got all their stability and I don't have that. I have to really remind myself of that. And so speaking to you and hearing you have the same insecurities is like almost validating for the path that I've chosen too, because I look at what you're doing and I just think phenomenal.
It's like what we're doing. I wrote about this in our book, Make It Make Sense, and it's one of my favorite sort of things that I did to validate myself is like I wrote this piece about how I wouldn't have been able to start Shit You Should Care About if I was off being busy, like getting ramen with my boyfriend. Like if I was sitting in my uni lecture, which is where it all started, and instead of texting my two best friends saying, I don't understand this, let's start something called Shit You Should Care About. If my mind was like, oh, let me text my boyfriend and say, I'm so bored of my lecture, let's go get food. Like it just wouldn't have happened. Like I had to be a single, independent, I had to sort of live my life. I feel like my 20s have been real career focused. And as I get like sort of to the end of my 20s, I'm becoming more like younger and like doing all the like fun shit that I probably missed out on. But I really do feel like if I wasn't single, none of this would have happened. And I try not to sound like a spinster because I like love really hard and I love and all that kind of stuff. But I have to remind myself too, like, oh, Luce, you did this the right way round for yourself, even though it's like quite a lonely endeavor and the money doesn't come instantly. And sometimes it feels like it doesn't come ever. I mean, we worked on this for 3 years before even like thinking it was a business. Whereas now I think people start brands, they see like Shit You Should Care About and they're like, cool, I'll start one of them and I'll start generating some income. And I want to be like, oh, probably not for like a few years till you've, built some trust. But yeah, I mean, likewise, hearing that validation from you, I'm like, we're doing it differently, but it doesn't mean we're doing it wrong.
Totally. And I think that I've gone in and out though of I've had to really redefine success because there's different types of success. There's financial success. There's social success in terms of your friendships and the people that you hold close to you. There is success in terms of skill set, in terms of achievements. Like there's so many different things. And I think because for a long time we lumped success as a blanket statement in with the financial, what is in your bank account, what are the assets, what's in your portfolio, I've had to really look at the way that I think about that and validate myself in the same way with the decisions that I've made. Because I actually agree. I mean, I haven't spoken about this on the podcast and I haven't because it's quite raw, but like I broke up with my boyfriend a couple of months ago and really it came down to the fact that like I actually had to choose what I was putting my time and energy into because the relationship wasn't super straightforward. And it did require a lot of time and energy from me if I wanted to see it grow and thrive. And I just didn't have enough space in my box. Not fuck, that sounds so sexual and I didn't mean for it to. But like in my box of life, you know, where I have my job and I have my friends and I have exercise and I have trying to be healthy and all those things, there wasn't enough space for everything to fit. And I had to make a decision, and it was really heartbreaking and so sad. And I still feel like, God, I wish I could like have it all, you know, and I wish that I had space for everything. But there's also just things come at different times. And for me, my timing is different to a lot of my friends around me. And that's also okay. And it's really important to realize that the order I'm doing things in is different, but it works for me. And I can't just pause the curve or my business or the things that I'm like, have worked so fucking hard on to chase what society deems as the most successful thing, which is a financial stability and also a romantic partner. And I guess my question to you is like, you're in a similar trajectory to me, and you've put your career as like, this is something that I'm focusing on. And you've written this amazing book, which everyone listening should go and buy, and we'll put more details in the podcast show notes. But when it came to being honest about all of those different elements of your life and talking about it, was there a particular subject or part of that book that was more difficult to write than others? Because if anyone reads your newsletters, they just like, it seems like they flow out of you. But when it came to the book, was there moments or topics where that didn't flow the same and it was actually harder?
The book itself like ruined my life. I'm so used to writing for the internet, and I don't have an editor. Like, I run the risk of getting cancelled every time I post or send a newsletter, which is literally like multiple times a day. So it's crazy that I don't have an editor. I just have like a really strong gut feeling, which once you've been doing this for 6 years, it's like the strongest muscle in my body. But the book, because it was like a labor of love for a really long time, I realized that I'm not good at doing long-term projects. I like to do really quick, like get it on my desk and get it off my desk projects. And I think the obvious answer for was there a subject that was hard to write about would be, there's a grief chapter in there about how I lost my younger brother when I was 23, so not that long ago.
Gosh, I had no idea. And like, fuck, that is just the most heartbreaking thing. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, honestly, it's fucking sucks. And if you read the book, it's like really fucked up what happened. And I did save that actually from the internet because I knew I wanted to write it for James, that's my little brother, and like in a way that felt quite like a bit more meaningful, a bit more long lasting, not that fleeting. But that wasn't the hardest part to write. That like flowed out of me, I think, because it felt like an ode. Like I was always wondering, what was I going to do for my little brother? Let me write something for him that makes sense. The hardest part was like, I think writing about trying to make like sense of the internet and whether it's fucked me up more than it's made my life good. And I don't know if I ever fully answer that in the book, but there's so like the internet has brought me my beautiful life that I love, but it also Tumblr gave me a fucking eating disorder. So it's like, okay, so where do we go from here? And I'm honestly, like, the reason I could write it is because I feel very healed now. Like, I love my life. I love who I am. I have the best friends ever, and I'm medicated. So it's like I'm not having to deal with all of that on my own. But I think just coming to terms with whether the internet was a net good or net bad for me, and considering that my life trajectory is still being on the internet, that was hard. And honestly, writing a book is so hard. It did not work for my brain. I'm so glad it's done. I love it to death. So glad it's done.
Yeah, I think I'd find it incredibly difficult too. The whole long-term projects without short deadlines is not great for my ADHD, you know? I'm like, I need this needs to be out yesterday or it's not getting done.
No, and honestly, it didn't work for me. Luckily, I had a co-writer, Belle, who she wrote half the essays, I wrote half, and she's got a totally different brain to me. She's also studied creative writing. So there was times where she would look through the draft and be like, hey, Luce, you've started every single essay with the same line. Because I'm used to writing the newsletter, which is like, hi, my angels, hi, little shits, hi, babies. Like, honestly, it was like I was learning how to be a writer at the same time as I was like commissioned to write a fucking book. But the book's good, everyone.
On that note, with the commission piece, how does it work financially? Like, I know everyone says books is just like there's no money in writing, blah, 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 which we all know. But do you get like a chunky or a tiny fee up front, and then is it like percentage of books?
So, yeah, we were... I'm not going to say we were lucky because it all came off the back of building shit you should care about, and none of that was luck. But
shit, yeah, that is the attitude that I'm looking for.
I really resent the idea of lucky girl syndrome, which I actually, again, wrote about in the book. No, we got an advance, and we had people that were sort of wanting us to write a book from 2020, and they wanted us to do like a coffee table book of shit you should care about, blah, 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 stuff I had no interest in doing. And then I met Belle, who came on as a columnist, and she was a beautiful writer. And initially, I just was there to help her publish a book. And I didn't really know how I would fit into any of it, but I didn't want to write it. I just wanted to like help another young woman that I could see was a great writer, and I had some connections. I was like, cool, I'll just like help you. And then we sent a proposal out to some agents, and they were like, well, Lucy, actually you need to be writing some of this. And then from there, yeah, it goes to like, ours went to auction.
Oh, that's quite fun.
Yeah, it was like really, I think we had 4 publishers that wanted it. Our agent said to us at one point, like, are you going to roll the dice or are you going to take the safe option or something? And I was like, am I in fucking Succession right now? Like, what is this?
Going to auction? This is too good. I've actually never heard of that for a book.
It was so interesting as someone that's never been in that industry at all before. Honestly, we chose the option with the best advance because I was like, we have no idea what the book industry is going to look like. You get a percentage of royalties as it outsells the advance, and to my knowledge, that's how it works.
Okay, so we're going to get back to the whole media and money side of things and actually creating a living out of an online brand, which we also know is fucking difficult. But I'd love to just dig into the whole doing your 20s wrong, which is something that you mentioned earlier in this interview. Yeah. And we sort of touched on the idea of like, what does success look like and blah, blah, blah. But if we were talking to younger Sophie and Lucy, or we have people listening who are younger and haven't started their careers, what kind of advice or big sister energy do you wish that you had to guide you through? Like, you've obviously come to a place of peace in it now, and you're proud of the decisions you've made and the way that success has been carved in a completely different way to what we've been told. How would you speak to those girls or those women who are thinking, I don't know if I want to prioritize having kids. I don't want to be stressed out about my biological clock. I don't want to be worried about what's in my bank account. How do we try and empower them to not feel scared to make the same kinds of decisions that we have?
Don't listen to people that think that you should have a really huge, or that you have to have a huge life from a huge place. Like, you can have a huge life from a small place, from wherever you want. I feel like I live a very authentic, like, whimsical life. I love being from a small town. I don't like a big city. I don't need much. I'm not like a Lululemon sort of Pilates girl. I just need my space and my friends. And I wouldn't change any decision that I have made whatsoever. And I've always been quite at peace with it. But the things that I did think I had to do, which was like move to a big city, move to Europe, go networking, go and do all this, like, you know, wear a pencil skirt, which I never did. But I just think, like, don't feel like you have to do, especially not in 2025, don't feel like you have to do the things that seem like chic. What else did I say? Oh my God, don't sign any contracts until you've been doing the business for about 5 years.
Oh, I wish someone had told me that.
Don't give away a piece of the pie. Don't take investment. Unless you're trying to build rocket ships or something, then like you need money. For I am such a like bootstrap girl. Just if you don't have the money, like, I worked other jobs on the side to support this instead of always owing someone something. So don't take investment. I've got so much advice, but it's like funny because it's never from things I did wrong. It's from things that I luckily, and there was actually luck involved here, based on the people I knew and my own naivety, did right. Like, not sign with agents who give you criminal contracts, not give away equity when you don't know what that means. And just like all these learnings I had when I was in my mid-20s, and I was like, thank God I didn't do any of that.
It's so easy as well when you've built something that's blown up on the internet. Like, I imagine you had a lot of people crawling in from different parts of, you know, who you knew, being like, I can help and do this, I can do this. And it's like, yeah, and it can feel really genuine, and also it can feel like, oh, this is going to make it easier, but actually it's just not easy. You kind of have to accept that starting a business is fucking difficult.
Yeah. And if it seems too good to be true, not to be like cringe, it probably is. Also, at this point, I was just living in Blenheim. I didn't know anyone. So all these people that were sort of coming to me, I was like, I didn't even know the landscape at that point. So I was like, I can't trust any of y'all. And thank God I thought that way instead of, oh my God, here's someone from America that seems really cool and wants to invest or whatever.
What was the moment where you thought, holy shitballs, this is blowing up? You mentioned you had the moment at uni where you thought, this is like all wrong. Like, this isn't like media and news isn't being presented to me in a way that makes sense. And I feel like there's a gap that could be filled. But when was the moment where you really thought, holy shit, we're onto something here?
Like, in terms of numbers, in 2020, when everyone was locked down, there was a Trump election, there was a New Zealand election, and there was also the Black Lives Matter sort of resurgence. That was when we went from like 200,000 to 1 million followers in a month. And that coincided with sort of celebrities deciding that they needed to show that they cared about things, and for some reason coming to shit you should care about, which was so cool. But I was also like, there's a lot of pressure for like this young girl from Blenheim, New Zealand.
This gives me goosebumps.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I know.
The fact that you have all these actual celebrities, sorry to sound cringe, but like, what?
That is insane. I remember like, because I was still running it with my two best friends, Rubes and Liv, at the time. And I remember we were sort of spread amongst the country in lockdown, and I rung them and I was like, okay, guys, so Billie Eilish has just put us on her story. Ariana Grande just followed us, and like, I am freaking out. And I was just walking down like one of my solo lockdown hot girl, like nothing felt real, and it still doesn't feel real. Like the internet, I still feel quite disconnected from, but that's when I was like, holy shit. And it was also the time when I thought it would just be a blog. So me and Ruby were spending all our time, and we made no money from this, just editing people's writing that they'd submitted and posting it on a blog. And like, we didn't know anything about ad revenue. It was just like it was a WordPress blog and then a Squarespace website that Liv, our other best friend, designed for us. It was all very pure. There was no money involved, no money changing hands. We weren't making money. We were just like all in lockdown. So that was when I think it felt like, whoa, this is huge. And then we got some funding at the end of 2020 from New Zealand On Air to make a web series. And that gave us enough money for the three of us to be employed for a little while. And I think that's when we felt like, oh, this could be an actual job. It was like 3 years after we'd just been doing it for fun. So it really, it was a slow burn.
And so did your two best friends, do they have equity, or is it total? Yeah. So, and are they still working in the business?
No. So they both left at separate times. Liv lives in London now, and Rubes lives in Sydney, and we're still best friends. But the equity reflects, like, it's always been my baby from the start. I've been the writer and I've been like obsessed with it. Rubes was working on like the partnership side and like making us media kits and stuff, and Liv was our designer. But we always had like really big lean in and lean out periods. But I was the one that never leant out. I just kept it rolling. And the equity, we're all really happy. It like reflects that. But also people always say don't start a business with your friends or your best friends. But these are like sisters. Like, we've been friends, very small town, since we were children. And it's not like when you're like at high school and you have like cat fights and things like that. We've never been that type of friends. Like, genuinely having those as my business partners was the best thing of my whole life, still is the best thing ever. And now they just watch me doing it with like, oh my God, Lucy's doing exactly what she should be doing. This is perfect. She's slaying. Like, there has never been any bad blood. And so when people say that, I'm like, I understand the sentiment, but maybe you don't have the right, you're not doing it with the right friends, or you're not doing it with the right intentions.
What was the moment that they both, or the reason that they both had to lean out? Like, was it financial? And it was like, there's actually just not enough money for all three of us to have a full-time job. Was it that they found other opportunities? Like, how did that happen and how did it remain harmonious?
So in the beginning, it was just they would get busy with uni. We'd all get busy with uni or with our other jobs, and this wasn't paying us at all. And I always have loved the internet. So I liked making sense of the world just because it was fun. And so I would just keep posting and they'd just go live their lives and we'd still be friends and whatever. And then when it became a business after we got the New Zealand On Air funding, we worked together for like 2 solid years, and it was never financial issues. It was just Liv wanted to move to London and go and be in a band and live a separate sort of new life. And she's an artist, and so she's got a very like needs to chop and change mentality. And then Rubes, she continued on. She moved to Sydney and continued on with me for a year doing the partnerships, and I'd do the content. And then she just got to the point where she reached her ceiling of things she could learn from me, and she didn't really love doing sales. And so she was like, I love the business, but I'm not like a shark that's going to go out and, you know, get you as much as you should be getting. I think she felt a bit of guilt about being like, I do such a good job with the content and I could talk about shit you should care about for hours. And she was like, it's not in my blood to just be like pitching us to people. And so she was like, I'm going to go find another job. And I was like, great, because I would never want you working in a job that you didn't feel like you were learning and you didn't feel like you were comfortable in. And then she got amazing jobs after that, and we've all like remained best friends, and it's worked out really well. And I don't mind me saying this, like I prefer doing it on my own, and I have a team in terms of I have a wonderful agent now who looks after partnerships, and the Substack is all mine. Like that's my baby, and that's where I make my salary, and I do speaking and things. Like it's much better me doing it on my own.
That makes so much sense to me. And also I think the only way that a business or friendship crossover can work is when you're honest about what you want and need. And if you're not enjoying it or it's not working, you have to speak up. Otherwise, it's just like actually going to spiral things into the toilet anyway.
Yeah. And I think with us, it was like we could tell when everyone was reaching the end of their sort of time. We were working, it was really fun. We had like office space together in Auckland for a few years, and it was really fun getting to do that. But I think we knew it was for like a season, not a lifetime. And yeah, now we're all just much happier doing our own thing.
I love that. One of the things that you speak about a lot is the idea that being single comes with financial costs, and like, you know, whether that's like rent, a party, a wedding gifts. Why do you think society still structures so much around couples? And have you seen any of it shift with the narrative that you're pushing? Because I went to a talk in London a couple of months ago, and it was talking all about this and how we massively pedestal romantic relationships in terms of legal, like everything, you know, it's just it's so structured to benefit romantic relationships as almost like a business arrangement. What have you seen shift? And I guess just what's your perspective on this in general?
So I think the question of why is society like this is because it just takes us so fucking long to change anything. I mean, look at us trying to change any laws or I just think it's like social change is so slow that it is how it is, which is such a terrible way of thinking. It's not overly optimistic, but I just think the world is set up that way because it just always has been, and things take fucking forever to change. But little things that I do see changing are like in the past few flats or house shares that I've lived in, I've lived with couples and we all split the rent evenly. It's not them being like, we have a one bedroom between two of us, so we're gonna have cheaper rent. It's been, I think, the cost of living and because I live with friends who are like, we don't want to shaft you because you're single and make you pay more. That's one thing that I've really loved. And I know some of my friends in London, I think they expected the couples to want a cheap room. but instead they were like, let's split it evenly. I love that mindset.
My flat's been exactly the same. It's awesome. And I remember when they showed me around, and they've like, a couple of them I was friends with before, but all of them have become like family. It's so special. But it's the same thing. They're like, we take up space in the kitchen, bathroom, in the fridge.
We have a bigger room because exactly. So I really love that. I also think I would like to see more of this, and I hope the world's moving more towards this way, but like friends becoming a village and being more of a community, and like all living either really close together and like sharing things, like not like living on a commune, but like,
oh hey, I'm kind of into it. Like I would consider it.
I'm into it. If all my friends were like, let's buy a piece of land, like all live there and like have gardens and you know, share like childcare and things like that, I'm so down for it. And so I do think we're seeing a bit of a shift towards that, but I don't know if that's just my wishful thinking because I'm a single girly in the world and I want my friends around forever. Even I did a book launch in London, and the street that we did it on, I can't remember the name, was, I think it was like the biggest number of woman-owned and independent businesses on a street in London. And the bookstore owner was like to me, we just like go and drop our kids to each other's stores when we've got meetings and busy things, and we drop each other lunches. And it was just like, even that is a bit more of a move towards communal living, which is less like prioritizing a sort of monogamous couple and more like a community. I love that shit.
I love that. And I also think that there's it's so interesting because this would have been like 2019, maybe even 2018. I quit my job at Sony Music in Sydney, and I bought a one-way ticket to Mexico with one of my best friends, and we were making content and traveling, and like it was so epic. Mainly because I just didn't want to be just getting drunk and going to hostels. I was like, there's got to be a purpose to this, or like a higher reason and learning behind it. I don't just want to be getting drunk. And the point to the story is that we landed ourselves at a proper commune in Costa Rica for a while, and we lived in this space for like 6 weeks where, you know, like, and this honestly sounds so happy because it was, as in everyone swimming nude in the ocean, everyone cooking together, like, but I didn't like necessarily that element of it. You know, I loved the idea of communal living, but not in the traditional, like super hippie sense. And so I think that the overarching shift or awareness towards more communal living has changed, that it's not like everyone has to grow up their own drum hair and plait it to live in this area. It's like proper, enjoyable, it's like almost a different take on the classic monogamous nuclear family with a hybrid of that living. I think when you say communal living, people instantly think of like tree hugging, barefoot wearing, I don't believe in deodorant type approach. Whereas actually, and by the way, I'm all for that. It's more just that for me, because I've really prioritized career and business and stuff, like I don't want to be living on the land with zero income or with zero, you know, like it's like a hybrid smashing together of like the capitalist society and the extreme commune living, and more of like finding what that middle ground looks like, which I'm totally here for.
It's like you actually know your neighbours and they're probably your friends, and if you need sugar, like you can actually go and get it from them. Like that kind of stuff where you feel less alone in the world, and also you share the burdens more so than we all run around barefoot and like eat tofu.
Look, yeah. I mean, like, look, again, I like tofu, so I feel like I'm actually.
That's why I couldn't think of something I didn't like to eat.
I know, and even when I talk about like running around barefoot, I'm like, I'd be keen to do that. So it's like I'm not trying to like shit all over the idea of a hippie community. I think there's actual real pros in it. It's more just when I went to the Costa Rica one where they weren't my mates, I really realized like that is the bridging thing here, is that I want to choose who's in my commune, not just stumble upon one and decide to move in, you know?
Yeah.
What would you say have been your biggest financial challenges that you have faced as a young independent building a career outside of that traditional structure?
I think the challenges has more been in the understanding of, like, first of all, having to learn about investment and equity on my own, sort of in a rush because people were throwing things at me. That was something I never learned at school or didn't take it at uni, never seemed interesting to me. And then suddenly I was like, holy shit, I'm a business owner. I need to learn it. That, and then also how sort of complex things like investing, or how like almost gendered and how like manly it all felt. And luckily my gentle, lovely older brother like sat me down and taught me how to use Sharesies and was basically like, hey, like you've got this much money, you should put it in these two things and just like watch it and learn. So I had someone sort of talk me through that, but without him and me like being like, Nick, I really need to understand this. How can like, I think it would have been really hard. I've always been really like frugal, and because the other big fear I have is like, oh, all of this could go away within the next year. And watching the media industry, particularly in New Zealand as it is, it's a real fear. And like it's not to sound doom and gloom, but it's like sometimes it feels like the end is near. And so I, since starting Shit You Should Care About, have run a very lean machine, and I have never wanted to scale up in terms of employees or like even equipment and stuff really for the sake of it. I just buy things when I need them. I don't spend money on stupid shit and I don't pay myself a shit ton of money either. Like I have money in the bank, but I'd rather have that sitting there so I could see the business for the next 5 years than have that all in my bank account. Like for what, you know? But because it's me and it's just me and I pay my contractors and things like that. And it's quite easy for me to budget because I can happily go without so the business can go with. That's just how I was brought up as well. I wasn't brought up with like a shit ton of money, and you know, my parents didn't like invest in my business or whatever. It was just like I was a nanny and then I was a fucking waitress and then I couldn't get a job in Auckland, so I just did all these random jobs while I was doing Shit You Should Care About. So it's the understanding of the finances that's been more difficult than actually the money, I think.
Well, I think also the way that you speak about social issues and news and all of that is really similar in a way to what we've done with The Curve, with trying to make financial conversations more encouraging, more exciting, more interesting, more funny, like bringing humor to it. There's a lot of people who probably never thought they cared about the stuff that you talk about until they saw it presented in the way that you present it. And I think the same could be said for The Curve with money and business, because I was the same. I was like, didn't do business studies at school, never thought I would be owning a business, never thought I was interested in that, didn't know what the fuck equity was. You know, I didn't have any of those basics. And I think that I too was kind of forced into learning it. And then when I realized it was actually so much easier than I thought, like so much easier, it was just the realization that the way in which it had been presented to me in a very masculine, traditional way through Wall Street Journal for so long was just not how I enjoy or am interested in. Like now I genuinely find hearing about what's happening with big businesses more interesting than a reality TV show. But it's just that I never saw it in that way because traditional media was not built for those conversations.
Yeah. And I've always believed that things like money and things like, remember when like Web3 and things like that were popping up, and even AI, I really do have a theory that these topics are kept mystified, like
for a
mystifying
reason.
On purpose. They're gate-kept from women, and they're gate-kept from people that can't pay to get the education to understand them, so that it's just this sort of almost like one layer of society that gets to understand them and benefit from the stock market and things like that. And yeah, that used to be kept from women, and now it's kept from people that can't afford it. And if you can't afford a paywall to understand that article that's going to tell you about what to invest in, like you're just on the back foot, and like undereducated people. And I think they're mystifying for a reason. That's not a hot take, but it was something that when I started doing Shit You Should Care About and trying to make sense of these complex things, and then sometimes I'd realize it wasn't that hard, but also because I had a uni degree and $7 to pay the New York Times or whatever, I could learn it. Yeah, that's when I started being like, bro, these things have been kept from us for a reason. Like, people are using these big words so that we don't understand sometimes.
100%. I could not agree more. I think money is the absolute epitome of that. And it's because there's a shitload of money to be made out of people not understanding and people being scared to just have to pay for their thing. I mean, it's true in literally every single industry. I even like, as a weird example, like when we were looking into how could we give equity to the people who work with and for us, because, and like this is called options.
Yeah.
And, you know, and like I remember talking to this guy who was trying to explain it to me, and honestly, it was comical. Like I was just cracking up at how outrageous he was making it sound and how complex. And I just kept asking stupid question after stupid question because I knew that I had every right to. But there's a lot of people that don't feel comfortable asking the stupid question, so everyone stays in the dark. And it's like, yeah, it's unfortunate. And actually that's why platforms like Shit You Should Care About is so fucking important. I would love to ask you a question specifically around feminism, because you mentioned that in terms of it's, you know, it's not a hot take, but I still think that it is. Feminism or equality is not just about earning capacities or equal pay. It's about like economic independence and not feeling like you need to be attached to the hip of a man in a heteronormative sense to be, you know, financially independent. When it comes to like the freedom to say no to that traditional, what it looks like, what have you learned that has given you more confidence to stand on your own 2 feet and think I can have economic independence in whatever way I decide that is for my life? What have been the things that have really empowered you to feel like you mentioned before, it was your brother sitting down with you and saying, don't put your money in this account or try and do this. Like, what have been some of the most obvious or easy unlocks that for you have given you the confidence to know I don't need to be in a traditional relationship to be financially independent?
When I was 20, my parents separated and everything's fine. They're good friends. My family's were chill. But my mum had been the stay-at-home mum for 4 kids for like 25 years, right? She met my dad when she was 19. They had kids in her early 20s. Her whole life had been raising us, which is, I mean, they did a fucking good job. We're great kids, and that is unpaid work that women do. And then when her and my dad split up, she had to basically rebuild her life from scratch. And she went out and she bought like a little house with, I think, obviously they divvied up some things that they had together, and with that she was sort of smart about it. And I remember watching her being like, how the fuck do you know how to buy a house? And like, how do you know? And she would be like, oh, and I've put some money in like this investment thing. And I'd be like, how do you know how to do that? And then she went and got like a job at a rest home and just like started building her life up independently. And now she's since like sold her first small house and lives in like a beautiful home that she loves, and she could do that all on her own after feeling like she hadn't done anything except for raise us for years and years and years.
Which, by the way, would be absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, right?
So scary, so scary.
And she just like took it on the chin and then she built this life that is like a really good life. And I remember her, because now I'm like to her, so mum, if I ever want to buy a house, what the hell do I do? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh my God, I didn't know what to do. You just go to the bank and you ask every single question like under the sun. And so I think her just doing that, she didn't even make a lesson out of it or anything. I just sort of watched from uni being like, how the hell's mum doing all this? And making me feel like, oh my God, okay, it's not that deep. It's not that scary. Even if you've been out of work for like years and years and years. So I think watching her do that sort of like subconsciously made me be like, why the hell would I wait around for a relationship to sort of want things like that? And then also I grew up with Tumblr and Twitter and like the internet that I think just always, and in the circles that always told women they could. I never really, and my brothers have always been really supportive. Like I just grew up with really good brothers they would never be like, I should make more money than you because I'm a dude, or like, well, of course I should be a CEO. One time my dad did tell me, oh, Lucy, do you know what? You'd be a really good executive assistant. Like, that's what you should do for a job. And I remember being like, what the fuck? I'll be the executive. And my mum was like, Joe, what are you doing telling her she'll be an executive assistant? First of all, no way. I'm not organized like that. But, I mean, that's like a funny thing that we bring up all the time now. But I think just like, I was never told that I couldn't, is like the long and short of it, which I'm really lucky. And then the circles I found for myself never told me I couldn't. And also I'm just not that interested in being in a relationship. So love that for me.
Love that for you. Love that for me. I just think also it's like what's not spoken about is the underbelly of all those things. You know, like we have so much freedom to do and choose and spend our time in the way that we like. We also can have our own financial independence regardless of our relationship. And one thing that I feel super, super grateful for is that I decided, well, I didn't even decide. I fell into this, right? I'm single and 33, and I am in a position where if I had then joined forces with somebody, it would be in a very different way to if we'd met at 18 and been, you know, attached at the hip and attached financially from that point onwards. And so I feel very grateful and lucky to be in a position where, you know, not by choice, but have been forced into financial independence now rather than at 55 because a relationship's broken down, like because it's what I've always known. It's how I will continue to live my life. And I think for me, a massive, you know, because I've learnt all the things that we've talked about that are so easy to learn how to invest your money or be better with your money, I can then pass that on if I ever have kids one day, rather than those kids growing up in the same kind of like, I have no idea what's going on, because what they see is two financially independent people rather than just one and the other following. And I think that's that's something that I feel inadvertently grateful for.
Yeah, and I think you and I, and probably a lot of women, it's probably becoming more common, feel more safe being financially independent than we would if we had our money tied to someone else. Whereas when I was growing up, and definitely like before this generation, you would have felt more safe having your money with someone else, like having two incomes. But I feel way more safe that it's like all mine and it's my decision. And if it goes, it's my fault. And if it comes, it's my doing. That makes me feel more secure than if I was, you know, having a double income, I think.
I also think in a weird way, it probably will take a lot of the pressure off in a relationship, right? Because it's like no one's in it for that. You're actually in it because that other person's adding value above and beyond financial value.
Totally.
If you were to give one piece of, I know neither of us are financial advisors, but one piece of financial advice, just in a friendly older sister type way, what would be one thing you'd be like, definitely do X, Y, Z? Even if it's as simple as like, make sure you have enough in your bank account for, like, it can be something really trivial.
Set up an automatic payment to if you have a Sharesies account, to your Sharesies account, even if it's like $10, and then in that account, make it auto invest things for you. So you don't even have to think about it, but you know you're being a little bit smart every week with your money.
I reckon that's a game changer, the automation.
Oh my God. Because for a forgetful queen like me.
Same.
Yeah, it just makes you feel like, oh my God, I'll look at it in a year's time and it's like, oh, well, there's $500 there from the year or something like that. So use the tools that are there to help you, and then you don't have to think about it.
I love that. Thank you so much. It was
You're welcome.
Such a pleasure to meet you, speak to you. I feel like you're lucky there's a time limit on this interview, because it would have been one of those things that you would have been like, I need the toilet, I need to eat, leave me alone. Like, I had so many things I want to talk to you about, but yeah, thank you so much. It was just such a pleasure, and I can't wait to see you as a little isolated asset just grow more and more and more valuable.
Can't wait to see me be in my own forever.
Yeah.
On my commune. Can't wait for you to move in.
If you could let me know where you're buying land, that would be really great. Let's keep in touch about that.
Okay. No, it's been great. Thank you so much for having me.
I'd love to know what everyone thought of this podcast.
Same, actually. It's really cool when people leave comments underneath the podcast episode, because I must say, when people send us DMs on Instagram, I sometimes forget what it's about or like what they're talking about.
And like, imagine if we were doing shit episode after shit episode for over 200 episodes and we had no idea.
I mean, I don't know if we would have got to 200 episodes if they'd all been shit.
It's like someone not telling you what food in your teeth. Like, please, can you help us out here? Tell us what you like, what you don't like.
Also, we look hot. You know? Like, we want to know if
compliment
it's a good episode too. So if you're listening, wherever you're listening, and you have a thought on something we've spoken about, or a question or comment, please do leave it on whatever platform you're listening on. It also really helps us from an algorithm perspective, like for more people to find the podcast.
Yes, which we want to educate more and more women about the fun and beauty that is finance and investing.
I don't know if anyone's ever said fun and beauty talking about finance and investing, but I'm here for it.
Yeah.